Ever feel like sometimes traditional financial advice is kind of like missing something?
Okay. Yeah.
Especially like these days, right? You know, when everything in the news is like risk on, risk off, and then there's Bitcoin just doing its own thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we are diving into a BlackRock research paper today
Okay.
called Bitcoin, a unique diversifier to understand like why Bitcoin might actually be playing by a whole different set of rules.
Right.
And we've got our expert here to help us unpack it all.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
I think you're right. This paper is really interesting in that it challenges some pretty conventional wisdom.
Okay, so BlackRock is basically saying Bitcoin is not just another risky asset.
Right.
They think we need like a whole new playbook. So like, why is that?
Well, I think it goes back to how Bitcoin started.
Right.
So it was created in 2009.
Right.
And it was the first internet native currency that really took off.
Right.
And it's got this really unique combo of being scarce,
Yeah.
decentralized, global, and permissionless, which are big words.
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes when I hear like decentralized, I'm like, what does that even mean for like my actual portfolio?
Right. Yeah.
Help me connect those dots.
Yeah. Decentralized basically means that Bitcoin's not controlled by any one government or institution.
Okay.
So it's not like the US dollar or the euro.
Right.
It's like nobody can just decide to print a bunch more Bitcoins.
Okay.
So a lot of people find that appealing, especially,
Especially these days.
these days. Yeah.
With everything going on.
Yeah. You're not tied to like whatever central bank decides to do.
So it's kind of like a safeguard if governments get a little,
Yeah.
trigger happy with the printing presses.
Exactly. And I think this is where that whole risk on, risk off that dominates, like traditional finance advice.
Right.
It doesn't really fit with Bitcoin.
Okay.
Because Bitcoin kind of just does its own thing.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, that whole idea is that,
You're right.
when investors are feeling good, they buy stocks, they buy risk on assets. And then when things start looking scary,
Yeah.
everybody wants to go into bonds.
Right. Safety.
Safety, yeah. So BlackRock is saying, well, Bitcoin doesn't really follow that.
So they're saying Bitcoin doesn't really care if people are feeling good or bad.
Exactly. It's got its own...
It's got its own thing.
It marches to the beat of its own drum. Its price is driven by a unique set of factors.
Like what?
Well, technological advancements, obviously regulations, how those develop, and I think, importantly, global events.
Global events. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets really interesting.
That's where I think it gets really interesting, yeah.
Okay. So Bitcoin kind of marches to its own beat, like you said, but like, how does that play out in the real world?
Right.
Like, does this mean that Bitcoin could actually be like a safe haven when everything else is going crazy? Because I feel like that's what everybody wants to know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
And what I think is so interesting is that this BlackRock paper actually looks at some specific examples from the past. And those anxieties that we're talking about.
Right.
Geopolitical, instability, people worried about the dollar, all that. They actually looked at how Bitcoin performed during those kinds of events.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, they looked at, when there were those U.S.-Iran tensions back in 2020, even the Russia-Ukraine conflict more recently. And what's really interesting is that in a lot of those cases, Bitcoin initially dipped along with the markets, almost like a knee-jerk reaction.
Right.
But then it bounced back.
Okay.
And often went on to even higher highs.
So it's like it freaks out for a minute and then it's like, wait, on Bitcoin.
Exactly. It remembers what it is.
I'm good.
Yeah. It's like, I got this. And the paper suggests a couple of reasons for this.
Okay.
One is because Bitcoin trades 24/7.
Right.
It's super liquid. Even when the regular markets are closed.
Okay.
So if people are freaking out and they want to get their money into something quickly,
right,
Bitcoin's there.
It's like that friend you can call at 3:00 a.m.
Exactly.
They're always there for you.
Exactly. And then the other thing, and this is key, I think, is that because Bitcoin is decentralized at its core, its long-term value proposition isn't tied to one particular government or whatever.
Right.
It doesn't rely on their stability.
Okay.
So while those initial dips, those might reflect just fear in the short term.
Right.
What often happens is people are like, oh, wait, Bitcoin actually is more resilient.
It's built for this.
Yeah.
It can handle this.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm starting to really get this now. But the question then is, if Bitcoin is so different.
Right?
How do we even think about it?
Yeah.
In a normal portfolio, right?
Yeah.
Because I think most people are used to like stocks, bonds, maybe some real estate. Not this whole other thing.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely challenges like traditional portfolio construction.
Right.
And this is what I think is so cool about this BlackRock research.
Okay.
Is they actually like ran the numbers to see like what happens if you add a little Bitcoin to like a regular portfolio, like the classic 60-40 stocks and bonds. And their findings were really interesting.
Okay, tell me what they find.
So they found that at smaller allocations, like, a little sliver of your portfolio.
Like a little sprinkle.
Yeah, exactly. Just like a little dash of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It actually seemed to improve diversification.
Interesting.
Which led to better risk-adjusted returns.
So it's like that little something that zigs when everything else zags.
Exactly. It smooths out the ride a little bit.
Okay.
However, and this is a big however, at higher allocations, Bitcoin's volatility started to kind of work against it.
So it's like too much of a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. You got to find that sweet spot. And that's why BlackRock really emphasizes that, like, with any investment, you got to manage your allocation.
Right.
But the takeaway is, even a small amount of Bitcoin could potentially make your portfolio more resilient.
Okay.
Especially these days.
This is really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But I know that this paper goes beyond just the numbers.
Yeah.
Like, they connect Bitcoin to this bigger idea of the future of finance.
Yeah.
So what's their take on that? So we've talked about how Bitcoin kind of dances to its own tune.
Right.
How it could even be like a hedge against all the crazy stuff happening in the world.
Yeah.
But like, where does it fit into the bigger picture of finance? Because it seems like BlackRock is saying it belongs there, right?
Yeah. And that's what's so interesting about this research, I think.
Okay.
Is that they're connecting Bitcoin to like some really real anxieties that people have these days about the entire financial system.
Okay.
Like, think about what we've seen just in the past couple of years, right?
Right.
Geopolitical stuff is crazy. Everybody's worried about inflation.
Yeah.
Government debt is out of control.
Yeah. Nobody knows what to do.
And these are all things that like erode trust
right.
in the traditional system.
Okay, so you're saying Bitcoin with like its whole decentralized thing could be an alternative.
Yeah, like when you have a system like Bitcoin that operates totally independently of any government.
Right.
It really appeals to that desire for like financial sovereignty.
Yeah.
Like being in control of your own money.
Your own destiny.
Yeah. And I think that's why you see all these big institutions getting interested in Bitcoin now.
Yeah.
It's not just the tech people anymore.
Right.
You've got hedge funds, asset managers, even pension funds.
Wow. Okay.
Looking at Bitcoin as like a hedge against the whole system maybe blowing up. Who knows?
Right.
Now, to be fair, we're still early.
Right.
It's volatile. There are regulatory questions.
Right. It's not a perfect system.
Not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
But what I like about this BlackRock paper is that they make that connection between those anxieties that people feel and like, okay, maybe Bitcoin's not so crazy after all.
Right.
Maybe it's part of the solution.
So it's not even about risk on or risk off anymore. It's about rethinking risk.
Exactly.
Like the world is changing.
Yeah.
And maybe our investments need to change too.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Well, this has been really interesting.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Thanks for breaking all this down with us.
Happy to be here.
And for everyone listening,
yeah,
this BlackRock paper is definitely worth checking out.
It is, yeah.
Lots to think about in there.
For sure.
And it really makes you wonder, in a world that feels like it's getting crazier by the day,
right?
Could Bitcoin's biggest strength be that it's so different?
Interesting question.
Something to think about, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Okay.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world around us.